Welcome back, everyone, to the VS Code Insiders podcast. You're behind the scenes in everything happening in the world of VS Code for developers. I'm your host today, just by myself, no peers. I'm James Montemagno. I'm a lead on their developer community team. And with me, one of my best friends in the entire world, Tyler Leonhardt. How's it going, Tyler?
Good, James. How you doing?
It's great. It's so good to have you on the podcast. We've been friends forever, I'm pretty sure. And it was great recently hanging out with the VS Code team around MCP Dev Days. We're just chatting, catching up. You and I go way back to your PowerShell days, a whole bunch of other cool things. But if people don't know Tyler, you're obviously an engineer on the VS Code team, but maybe tell everyone a little bit about yourself, because I'm excited to talk about what you've been up to.
Yeah, that's right. So my name is Tyler. I'm a dev on the VS Code team. I've been with the team since December 2020. So 5 years now. Man, time flies. I own a whole bunch of like random things across the product. Anything from like I own the command palettes to like localization to authentication, which now has grown into like MCP Auth as well. And a bunch of other random oddities and ends. But yeah, I'm all over the place.
Yeah, and you've been at Microsoft and around this world. We were just talking on the last podcast all about with Daniel about the terminal rewrite, and obviously I know you're into the world of shells and have been in the world of shells for a long time. So I think we go way back. Yeah. And it was just so cool just to kind of catch up on everything. And I was like, I got to get Tyler onto the podcast. I got to be one of the first ones because you're doing so many cool things. I don't know about you, but I love working on a little bit of everything. I don't want to just own like a save button. I don't know. How did it feel like joining the team and then sort of like where you're at now and sort of as your responsibilities have grown?
It's really cool. I mean, I came into the team as like an extension author, right? Because I was on the PowerShell team and I was working on the PowerShell extension for VS Code. Like that was one of my like main things that I was working on. And then that basically turned into, all right, I want to make a move over to the core team, right? And of course, a lot of the folks there had known me because I had open issues related to the extension API and stuff like that. So yeah, that was cool to like come into the core team. And then once I got into the core team, I was able to not only focus on like just, one extension, but like focus on a bunch of different pieces, which I think I much prefer. I like having my fingers across a bunch of different pieces. So when I'm frustrated with one thing, I can switch to something else and work on that.
Well, and I love the iteration, like update planning that I got to be part of now. And on Mondays with the team, we talk about this and we went really in depth with Daniel and like how people can see the insight. What I love is like all the different pieces that people are working on, right? And like people are like updates on everything. And so I get a real insight into what everyone's working on. And people want to go actually deeper on your story, your journey, if you will, your developer journey. Actually, a few months ago, you did an entire developer's journey a podcast here on the VS Code channel as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so if you want to go deeper,
on that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, so you've been in our call where we talk about what we've been working on, but like all of that information is public. Like it's just in a GitHub issue in the VS Code repo. So like, I hate to break it to you, James, you're not that special.
I thought it was an insider. Oh wait, everybody's an insider.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, the video that I was on with Olivia and Reynolds, that was a lot of fun. We were asking things about like, my journey, and I kind of gave you an abridged version from moving from the PowerShell team over here. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, you've been doing tons of stuff, like I said, around MCP and authentication. What have you been working on? Like what's new for developers, like in the world of stuff that you've been working on, and like what's got you excited about that?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned before, I own Auth in VS Code, which is quite a beast of a component, as I'm sure anyone would know if they've done any sort of Auth related things. It's kind of kind of a crazy place.
Yeah.
Not for the faint of heart, perhaps. But anyway, so MCP came around, and the concept of an MCP server running not only like locally on your machine, but then graduating that to like, okay, what does a remote MCP server look like, where you are being exposed to tools that the model can use to invoke certain like APIs for that provider, right? So like GitHub being a great example, like there are a bunch of tools that you would want the model to be able to do, a bunch of tasks that you want the model to be able to do on GitHub. And while they did start originally with like a local MCP server that like, accepted like a personal access token that you go and mint on github.com, and then you like suspiciously place it in your on your local machine.
Suspiciously place it. It's very true. And you're always going to put it in the wrong place. I just open up Notes app and I'm like, I guess I'll put this here for later use. That seems safe. Don't do that. That's not a security best practice. Den would be very upset. So
we did the right thing in that regard of like, yes, if you're putting a secret in here, we'll like store it within the secret storage of VSCode. But like, really, you should leverage things that are pretty well known, like OAuth, for interacting with the remote service, especially because there's no like real benefit of having that server locally if it's just going to turn around and call API calls, right?
Yeah.
So the idea there is like GitHub can just host their own MCP server, and then models can interact directly with that. But we don't want to just still have this like token just sitting on your machine being used to make these tool calls. So that's when like the adoption of like typical OAuth 2.0 flows in remote MCP servers came about. And on the team, that's like my bread and butter. So I picked that up, and yeah, so we have that in VS Code today. It's been there since a few months now. And it's been such a wild ride, because like when we talk about auth in VS Code, we've mostly just been focused on like GitHub auth and like Microsoft auth.
Yeah.
And both of those two are complicated to their own regard. But when you talk about MCP auth, you're now talking about like a bunch of services, right? Not just these two that I've mentioned. And so now you have to think about like, now you have to really go deep into the OAuth spec and make sure that you support as many things that are adhering to that spec as possible, because the reality is that all of these different providers have their own interpretation of that spec and support certain features where others don't. And so, yeah, it's been a really interesting exercise, and me having to dig deep into all of these OAuth specs and figure out, okay, what are the things that need to be prioritized now, and then the things that we can add on later. So
it makes sense. And I love the ability where, like for the GitHub MCP, where you're already auth, and if you're already logged in with GitHub, then it just kind of pops up naturally to log in on the flow. You pick your account, and there's a lot of like newer features, like being able to like obviously like easily sign out and like control the authorization like per MCP server, and like reset things and untrust things and go through and things like that. And obviously that spec is evolving as well. So like I think if you're interested in that stuff, go to the iteration planning to search for Tyler, and then you'll see all the things that are happening there.
Yeah, that's right.
But talking about MCP servers, like I feel like something that maybe people won't ever see. I'm not sure if they will. You have to tell me. But you sent me this message on Teams about how you're sort of deeply integrating, creating your own MCP for the VS Code team when doing development. And you showed me this video on your ultra wide, which is beautiful because half the screen, because I'm also on ultra wide, half your screen was one VS Code and the other one was another VS Code. They should have been different themes. I think Josh's Tatooine theme is my personal preference, but that's just me. It's now officially the Tatooine theme forever, by the way. And I'll put a big thing right here so you can see it, and a link to Josh's. Everyone loves it. Like the Reddit went crazy about it. So how are you evolving MCP for like the VS Code engineering team? And like, how does that apply maybe even to like developers just like listening this?
For sure. Yeah. So it's something that I'm doing this iteration is like taking this. So I've been mentioning MCP Auth. We'll set that aside and just talk about like MCP servers in general. And one MCP server that's like very popular is Playwright's MCP server, which is so cool. If you haven't tried it out before, it has the ability to like spin up a browser, and then interact with that browser, almost as if you were doing it yourself. And it makes sense because Playwright is also a testing framework for these kinds of scenarios, right? So you would ordinarily write some tests, Playwright tests, and then that would go and like control a browser, let you take screenshots, let you look at the DOM, that sort of thing, to like truly end-to-end test your web app. Well, we've been working pretty close with that team for a while now, and we actually have a big suite of tests, Playwright smoke tests, as we call them, that use Playwright to test VS Code itself, both the browser-based VS Code and also the desktop, because since the desktop version is just an Electron app, which is really just a web app, Playwright was able to like hook into that as well and work with that. So we've got that foundational piece of like, all right, Playwright can interact with a local build of VS Code. And then there's also an existing Playwright MCP server. How do we like bring those together so that we could have like an MCP server that is specifically for interacting with a local build of VS Code? And so then you might be asking, well, why do you need that?
Yeah, why do you need that, Tyler? That sounds crazy. I mean, it sounds cool, but why do you need that?
That's a great question. So I don't know if you've had this experience before, but especially around UI bugs. When you give like agent mode a UI bug, it's going to make some changes. That's almost certain. But the real question is, are they the right changes?
Yeah.
And like, compilation can only go so far. Like you can check to make sure that like TypeScript compilation's fine. And you can check all of these like static things. But when it comes down to
look at all the CSS, look at all the HTML, like look at how everything is coming together. But
yeah,
it's just that's just a description of what it should be, not necessarily what it is.
Right. Exactly. So then the question is, all right, we know everything, like it's made the change at compile time, but does this change actually work? And until this work that I've been working on, the model, the agent mode, couldn't really do that sort of thing. So what we've added in VS Code, so this is like an MCP server that's like checked into the VS Code repo, is that the model can then go and run some tools that it has access to, because the way that it's set up is that the MCP server is checked into the code, and then in the workspace settings for the VS Code repo, you can put an mcp.json file in there and list out and like name an MCP server that you want to be available with that workspace, right? So for me, like a VS Code developer, I don't even have to like think about setup. It's just there when I get the workspace, so long as I trust that workspace, which is the VS Code repo. So I do. So the model just immediately has access to these tools, and we also added like a prompt file so that you can say, all right, I'm making these kinds of UI changes. I need you to take a screenshot before and after the changes that you make, and then truly verify that you've actually solved the problem. And so what that's going to do is, so the video that I showed you before was, I actually used the GitHub MCP server to like fetch an issue that I had, and the issue was that like there were these buttons that were too close together, and they needed to add some padding to them. And so, it fetched the content from the issue using GitHub MCP server, so I didn't have to like copy paste that in there. All I did was say like /playwright fix this issue. And I gave it a little bit of context of like where that component is, because the model doesn't necessarily know where every bell and whistle of VS Code is. And so then what that did is it like spun up then this like local dev build of VS Code, and then took this preliminary screenshot of the state before, made some changes, reloaded the window of that local dev build, relaunched the component. This was in the tools picker in chat for context, and then took a new screenshot of the experience post its change and verified that is what it was expecting to do. So not only do we have like this feedback that the compilation looks good, but also we have confirmation. We can have confirmation at runtime that those changes actually apply. So we could delegate theoretically even more to agent modes to make more changes in VS Code, which is great.
It's super cool because I often hear developers thinking about like, well, how do I integrate these MCP servers like into my workflow, right? Like, oh, isn't there like a Playwright, like like actual like CLI, and I could just like call and I could write these things, I could do these things, right? Like, well, in this case, like this could be run anywhere, right? Like that's kind of like the beautiful part of it. And actually, when you use the coding agent, the GitHub coding agent, when you delegate tasks to it, you actually see like Playwright deeply integrated into that. It's doing screenshots, doing stuff like this. What I like about what this workflow is, it's like for that local dev experience. Like, funnily enough, I kind of want this for myself. Literally last night, Tyler, I was struggling on this mobile app that I'm building. It's like a scorekeeper application, and I was struggling with CSS, and I was struggling with like different overrides of CSS, and I was going back and forth with different models and to investigate. I'm like, look at everything, look at this and this. But the problem was like every single time I'd be trying to like send it an image and send it this, and then I'd have to run the app and then stop the app and then run the app. Like, ideally in my workflow, I want to say, go fix this, but then validate it, right? Like, I think it's okay if I want to go through this workflow, which is like, yeah, spend a little bit more time analyzing and revving on it, because for your instance, right, then it can validate. And if it doesn't look correct, then it can go back and iterate again. Now it has like a ongoing record of the changes, and then you do too, which is super cool. So I'll be playing the video here. Like, if people are watching the audio version, you can go to the YouTube, you can see the video version of this. But what you described is like exactly what I saw. And like, mine was kind of blown, and I was like, well, this makes sense, and I can see how beneficial it would be. And combining MCP servers together was so cool. Like, was this out of a
frustration?
Yeah, I didn't want to say where did it come about? Was it a frustration?
Yeah, because I was having like agent mode make some UI changes, right? And then I'm realizing like, okay, so I have to sit here, right, and like manually verify the changes that it's making, right? And like go through the UI and like find where it is and say, okay, no, take a screenshot, give it back to chat and be like, clearly it's not working. Like, keep trying, right?
Come on, yeah.
And it's like, well, what am I doing here, right? I shouldn't need to be in the loop for this particular task. It can, if it has the right tools available to it, then it can just go into it by itself. So yeah, that was kind of that was the motivation to investigate this sort of thing. And it's been really interesting to use. I mean, I haven't been like the biggest, I haven't crafted too many prompts in my tenure thus far. And it's challenging for sure. But yeah, it's clear that like this developer loop of like giving the model not only build time stuff but runtime stuff is what can really kind of unlock full potential of this. And like maybe we get to a point where the model can go and make these changes, and like I don't need to run them myself because I have the confidence that it went and like actually tried those out, which is what I do for somebody on the team, right? It's like, when I review their PR, I assume that they've run it. At least that's the culture on our team, that like we make the assumption that they've run it and tested it well, right? So I'd love to get to that point for agent mode.
And I can see exactly the loop sort of finalizing too, which is the next step is in this process, which is, hey, okay, now you verified it. Now you have all these screenshots, go create a PR and then draft that PR with all of this information, the before, the after, the changes you made, and like given in-depth detail. And the model has that context because it just did it, right? And that's kind of the cool part. Is my favorite part of combining MCP servers, developing this workflow, is time saving, right? Letting the model do a lot of that, has the context, formulate that context, and I don't have to waste my precious keystrokes, right? I only have so many keystrokes left. I need to preserve all of them, Tyler, all of them. Right. I think what's really nice, and I appreciate you coming on and talking about this, is hearing how the VS Code engineering team is using these sort of advanced scenarios, using the tools to build the tools, right? It's real world. A lot of people ask us, oh, are you using this thing? Are you really using this thing? Like when I saw the demo, I was like, wow, this is like really neat. So Tyler, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this in depth.
And that's like how our team operates. We've always operated this way. So, I mean, that's what you get when you're working on developer tooling as a developer, right? Like, I'm the customer here, right? Just as much as you are and everybody else. So
totally. Well, I will put a link to all the issues and all the things, everything like that, and to your video as well, Tyler. Now, what's really cool is that you and I also have another best friend, which is Kent C. Dodds. And I actually sat down with Kent C. Dodds when we were all meeting up for MCP Dev Days about his journey and how he is using MCP servers with VS Code and his background, how it's evolved, his sort of entire changing. So funnily enough, now, if you want to hang around, not you, Tyler, but everyone else that's listening, to a bonus, a VS Code Insiders bonus first-time episode. We're dropping it in episode 3 with my sit-down interview with Kent C. Dodds, his entire journey, his developer journey. I guess I should put it on the Developer Journey podcast, but really in-depth about how he sees the future of MCP and evolving these different workflows as well. So, Tyler, thanks for coming on. We'll find everywhere, all the links below. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the VS Code podcast everywhere at vscodepodcast.com. You can listen, you can watch, you can do all that stuff. So stick around for a little bit of interview with Kent C. Dodds. So let's head over to that interview now. Hey everyone, I'm here with Kent C. Dodds. How's it going, Kent?
Super. Hi, everybody.
I'm super excited. It's your first time on the Microsoft campus. We just had you here for MCP Dev Days. I just want to sit down and kind of talk about the state of engineering a little bit and how you see it. I think people may know you as a prolific engineer in the React world, in the testing world, especially around Playwright, and also more recently in and around AI and around MCP. But if people don't know you, you want to kind of give a TLDR a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I live in Utah with my wife and almost 6 kids. So it's very busy. My wife's full-time mom, so I'm able to work and still get things done. But I am a full-time educator. I worked at various companies and decided I enjoyed educating the most. And so, since 2019, I've been just teaching people, testing and React and full stack and now AI and MCP stuff.
That's very cool. And, I think as myself, I love teaching people stuff. I think that's why I do what I do here at Microsoft. I love teaching something to someone that I think is just amazing and really awesome. I watched one of your videos because I quietly stalked your YouTube a little bit. And you have this cool documentary, a little bit about your background, about yourself. You said something really unique, which was like, if I was to teach you the cure for cancer, but you didn't remember it, then you probably remember the line better than I do.
It didn't matter. Yeah.
Doesn't matter at all, right? So what was this shift from I'm a full-time engineer to like becoming an educator, and why was that spark that sort of lit up for you?
I've been teaching since I was young. In church, we would speak in front of our peers from the age of 3, with mom whispering in your ear what to say, right? But so being up in front of people is something I've just always done. Not everybody who goes through my church also feels the same way, but for me, it mattered, or it just felt really fun and interesting. And so when I was even in school, I decided to run a workshop for my classmates, and I got a sponsor to sponsor pizza so people would show up. And so like it's just been kind of a thing that I've wanted to I've enjoyed doing. And when I was working as an independent or as an individual contributor, also just felt driven to share the experiences and things that I'd learned, and found ways to do that in such a way that it could be maximize the impact of that. So let's post it on the public blog. It's not proprietary information or anything. And just found myself like more and more, even actually before I was doing a lot of the teaching of the technical stuff, I really enjoyed the process of documenting and figuring out how to communicate what I had built so people can use it most effectively. So it's always just been about communication and helping people understand things that I just get a kick out of.
Was there a moment or some sort of connection that you had with someone that you're like, oh, I've like made the right choice? Like this is a moment that maybe you'll never forget. Because I know I have mine.
You like in deciding to be an educator?
Yeah, and after you got started and like kind of like, you know, the folks that you interact with, your students, if you will, right? Or maybe you gave a presentation at a conference and like there's a moment that made a connection. You're like, oh, wow, like this kind of not like validated it, but kind of you're like, oh yeah, this is why I do what I do.
Yeah, so now because I've been teaching for so long and taught so many people, and I'll go to conferences and people will come so they can meet me and just tell me how much of an impact I've had. So I have those kinds of experiences a lot now, and it really don't stop, please. If I have impacted your life, it actually helps motivate me and validate a lot. It keeps me going for sure. So yeah, I don't know that I can think of necessarily the first experience that I had that sort of thing, but it just hearing that somebody really, I think we can all relate to this. This is what you do, and you did a good job doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like that just feels really, really good. And so, yeah, I do hear that. And of course, I also hear the other, like this is what you do, and you fell short in this way. And so I am in my workshops, every single exercise, there's a feedback form that I ask people to fill out. I have tens of thousands of responses to that form now, and constantly looking for ways to improve the way that I communicate, because that's what I do.
Yeah. How did you land on Epic? Everything seems to be epic with, maybe you've been asked this 1,000 times, but I didn't sit down and do my research of listening to every interview that Kenzie Dodds has done. But, you know, I tend to use the word like awesome all the time. Everything's awesome, and obviously awesome, like, you know, on GitHub is like a thing. But how did you land on Epic, and why is everything so epic?
Yeah. So 2020, I've decided to turn all of my React workshop material into a series. Before that, I had done testingjavascript.com, had a bunch of testing material, turned it into workshops, and then posted up for that. And so I had like 6 workshops at the time, and eventually I think it grew to like 11 workshops. But yeah, I was thinking, okay, we're going to package this up. It's going to be its own thing. That's a lot of workshops. That's a lot of material. I don't know of a single platform educator who's produced so much content in a single place about React. And so just talking with Joel Hooks, my partner in crime, and in all of the stuff that we've done, we were going back and forth. I think the word epic was he said it first, if I remember right. And it just like, you know, this is an epic amount of material or something like that. And so that's where that came from. And then epic, like it also to me speaks like universe, space, like that's always been an interesting thing for me as well. And just like thinking about, you know, the grand cosmos. And so, yeah, epic kind of became a thing for Epic React. And then when I wanted to go beyond just React and do more full stack stuff, let's get into authentication and database stuff, like full application stuff. Epic just seemed to communicate that too. So with Epic Web, it was even bigger than Epic React was. And then of course, EpicAI, it's like, well, of course it's going to be epic, and everything's epic now. Unfortunately, somebody has bought the domain epicai.dev.
Oh no!
And so we had Epic React Dev, Epic Web Dev, and they wanted like 30 grand for it or something. I was like, I'm not gonna pay 30 grand for that. And so we went with EpicAI Pro, and I feel pretty. Yeah, we're pros. Like it's okay.
I can tell you felt okay about it. You're not as happy.
I would be much happier if it were EpicAI Dev, but EpicAI Pro is good.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I like it. You decided to run a developer conference?
Yes.
How did that go?
Yeah. So I after Epic React, I took a little bit of a break from creating material, because a year after Epic React, Ryan Florence and Michael Jackson were working on Remix, and actually just like 2 months after I launched Epic React, Remix developer preview came out. You have to pay to have access to this framework. They were going to try and make money charging for licenses, which I guess Microsoft did that. So
it worked for us.
It kind of worked. So I had been working with it. I was like, yeah, this is absolutely the way I want to build React apps. And if it's the way I want to build it, it's the way what I want to teach.
Yeah.
And so in talking with them, it eventually became clear that like it's not really ready for something like Epic React for Remix. And so they asked me to just join up and be a co-founder with them. Cool. And so I joined up, and I was with them for a while. But as soon as I joined up, we launched the open source version of Remix. And then I was like, we need to have a conference. I've been speaking at conferences for a long time. I think bringing people together is what motivates people to build really cool things. You have a lot of examples of things that have conference-driven development and stuff like that. Yeah. So you just want to get people together. And so there's a company in Utah that has been running ngconf for Angular for a long time. They run a whole bunch of, they've run React Conf a number of times as well. And so I reached out to them and we organized Remix Conf. Had over 300 people there 6 months after open sourcing. Like this pretty significant, pretty cool. And then I schedule Remix Conf year 2. I decide to leave and then I go start building Epic Web. And Shopify asked me, can you run year 2 for us? And so I ran year 2. And then the following year, I'd launched Epic Web. And I was like, I kind of like running this conference. So I shifted it. Now I wasn't at Remix anymore. I shifted it over to Epic Web Conf. And so ran that 2 years in a row. And it's just, I really get a kick out of getting people together. It's fun.
It's something, we even just here whenever I'm on campus, right? Because I live down in Oregon and Berk's down in Tennessee, and like we're all over. But the conversations that you have when you put 2 people, 3 people, 4 people in a room, it's completely different. And Katie on my team, we were just talking about that and just even getting to know somebody. Mm-hmm. And sort of not just, you can ask questions when you're talking to someone on like a Teams call or a Zoom call, but when you're actually making different connections, like sort of like sticks a little bit more. Like you and I had a great conversation about your family and my family. Like this, I think hopefully you'll remember a little bit. I'll remember a little bit of that, but when you're switching that context because that next call is coming, it's a little bit different. And I love the conference-led development because at this year's Build, I feel like it was awesome. If people were at Build, it was fantastic. And we'll get you there, Kent, don't worry. But I really feel that way when people are at the booth and they're talking. You've been at conferences, I've been at conferences. It's the same. Any of them, they're all the same. Like people just come in, they just want to talk to you. Engineers talking to engineers, and you just thrive off of it, right? Just so it's a great moment. But running conferences is complicated. I know we're going to talk about EpicAI at some point, but any lessons learned from running these conferences? Because a lot of people are always interested in running conferences. We used to have a .NET Fringe conference down in Portland, and it was just like one track, people in a room, like it just kind of happened. I have no idea how it happened. The organizers were great, but any lessons learned, like things that you would tell people that are interested in starting sort of conferences like this?
Yeah, I would say for anybody who is wanting to get people, well, first you got to decide what is your motivation, like what's your primary goal. For most people, it's just, I don't know, I just kind of want to get people together. And if that's the case, then it doesn't have to be big and impressive and have like a ton of people. If you're the kind of person who's like, oh, I want to make a bunch of money, there are other ways to do that, but it is possible. I know people who throw really big events, and in that case, you just want to chase whatever's hot and whatever's got the money and stuff. But that's not what I do. Bringing people together, you can do that with a meetup, and then you evolve the meetup. That's what I would suggest. I ran a couple of other events before. And then like the other benefit is I did have that company that has run many events before. Yeah. So I was in charge of the website, finding sponsors and finding speakers. And that was my job. And I can totally do that. I have good relationships with people and everything. So yeah, if you're just getting into this, my biggest advice would be start accruing those relationships, not just with potential speakers, but also with sponsors. Because these events, even if you do something small and simple, food just costs a lot, AV costs a lot. But that's the thing too, is it doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to record it. You can just do it in some office or something. It doesn't have to be a big thing because the goal is just getting people together. And you can do that in a simple way and then iterate to something bigger and more full.
create those spaces for people to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest part when I talk to my team or I go to every conference. Like my favorite thing is the hallway track. It's just people hanging out and talking. That's all I kind of want to do. And there was a time, right after COVID where I was like, I kind of want to get in, I want to get out. And now in the last few years, I've been getting back, and like, I'm not going to leave the conference hall or the center. I'm just going to be here. And I tell everyone after my talk, like if you don't see me, then tell my boss, because I've done something wrong. Like you will see me. I will be at lunch. I'll be here. I'll be lingering. If you see me, I'm here. Engage with me. Like if someone's attending a conference, like I don't care if it's Kent, I don't care if it's Hansman, I don't care if it's Satya. Just go say hello. So go up to them. Like they're there for you. I think that's something that I've learned in my many years of doing this, is like, that's kind of my favorite part, is when people come and talk.
Yeah. Like I think you're worried that they're going to be bothered by you being there. If they were bothered, they would leave. Right. And so they're not going to be bothered. The other thing that you hear is like, don't meet your heroes because they're going to be mean or something. And honestly, like most of the time they're not. And if they are, then it's good for you to know.
That's true.
Like, well, maybe you shouldn't heroize them, I guess, if that's a word. But I most of the time they're much more interested in talking with you than you might think.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, let's talk about EpicAI. When you went from like Epic React, Epic Web, and you've involved this, is that just like you've been looking at like the trend in the industry, or is this like feedback from your students in general, a mix of both? Like how did this evolve? How is this all evolving?
Yeah. I definitely watch and listen to my students and like make sure that I'm addressing the needs that they have. But my primary directive or the thing that directs me is what interests me and what I think is the best way to build the best user experience. So I go out and I build something and I'm like, wow, that was really a great way to do this. Let me figure out how to make this even better to solve this particular problem. And then I'll go teach people how to do it. So with testing, it was, okay, I'm solving testing problems at work and in my open source stuff. Now I'll teach people how I did that. And then with React, it's like, okay, I'm building all these React applications. Let me, at PayPal in particular at the time, let me show people how I have done that. Okay, and now I'm building, I built kentcdodds.com, redid it from scratch, way over scoped for any personal website.
Means you did it right.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So I make a point to say over scoped, not over engineered. So it's definitely way more complicated than most personal websites have any right to be. But I very intentionally did that so that I could know, okay, what does it take to build an app like this with the modern tools that we have? And then Epic Web, I'm teaching you how to do that. So EpicAI is the same. I just looked at the landscape. How is this AI thing going to change the way that we are? And typically I'm thinking through the lens of a product engineer, because that's how I grew up. I was a product engineer, and I'm thinking, okay, how is this going to change the way that a product engineer approaches their users, or even me? I am a product engineer still, working independently, and so how does this change the way I develop software? And then I go and develop software that way, kind of figure out how to do it, and then I teach people how I did that. And I really do believe that MCP is going to have a major role in the way that we develop software for our users and deliver our services to our users. And so that's why I've pivoted so much to this. Now, React and testing, like those, all of that still exists over there. And if you need to learn that stuff, testingjavascript.com, Epic React, Epic Web, still really great. Go use that. But tomorrow you're going to be like, oh, shoot, I need to learn how to connect my service with these AI agents. And I'll be there ready for you when you're ready.
I do feel like I have a lot of questions, but I do feel like to that point, like a lot of people, it's always the best time to learn is like now, but and if you're not there, it's okay tomorrow or the next day or whatever. But I do find that, because I can be in the space at Microsoft and AI evolving and Copilot and VSCode and all this stuff, that when I start to talk to engineers, talk to companies, there's tons of people. It can feel like you're behind, but you're not. Like it actually, you're not behind at all. And if you're looking to start now, you're actually way ahead than like a lot of other people. Yeah. Because a lot of companies, a lot of enterprises are just now starting they're figuring out what tools are out there. What should they use? How do you work when you have a web team, a backend team, a mobile team, using all different programming languages, different tools? How does that all come together? So as you're evolving this, like how has the impact of just AI, not just MCP, but AI just impacted you as a personal developer? Like that's what you were looking at. How is it impacted
everybody, right? It's 3 or so years ago when ChatGPT came out. Like that was, we've had LLMs before. It's not like this is a new thing, but what was new was the ease of access to LLMs. And from that moment, I like, you probably threw code at it and like, what can it do with this code? And so it instantly changed things. Like I could paste in even syntax that I'd not seen before, or a language that I'm not familiar with, and ask it questions about that. So it instantly impacted the way that we develop software and learn about software. Especially me as an educator, I'm thinking, okay, so how does this change the way that I educate about software? And I got thoughts on that too. But yeah, from an impact standpoint, there are a lot of gaps that are left because of just the way that LLMs work, and these applications are filling in those gaps as best they can by adding the necessary context and making sure they're not adding irrelevant context. Like that context engineering mindset is a constant challenge that we're just getting better at all the time. But I was sticking around with React and full stack Remix, React Router, all of that. Even with all of this, and what made me make this pivot was MCP, because I would see people building chatbots in their applications and like, okay, I can teach people how to do that. Like I could do that, sure. But users don't want a chatbot in your application. Like, yes, they do want to be able to communicate with your service using natural language. Correct. Absolutely. But they don't want to have to say, okay, I'm going to copy paste context from this chatbot into this one. And then from, what comes out of that goes into this one. And then it comes back here. And like all of that context movement. And oh yeah, this chatbot doesn't know my personal preferences. And I got to they want a single general chatbot that knows everything they want to know about them, that can communicate with all these services. And so that just never captured me as a thing that product engineers are going to do. There will be some people who work in those spaces for sure, and there are lower levels as well. But again, I'm just thinking about the product engineers, and in my mind, most of the product engineers were still doing React stuff. And in fact, that's probably still, that certainly is still the case. But I think in the coming year or so, we're going to see a lot more people transitioning over into the MCP space, where UI will still be relevant. I think React still has relevance possibility there too. But the real point is I'm thinking about the product engineer, and it wasn't until MCP that I thought, okay, this is product engineer is going to be interacting with the AI in this way.
Yeah. What was it about like when you saw MCP, like what was it that like kind of clicked for you? Like what was it that you're like, oh, this is the thing?
Well, so I had been talking with my friend Ryan Florence for about a year. We were driving home together from React Conf at 24 last year, and talking about how AI is changing everything. Of course, like that's half of our conversations in the last
that's all it is.
Couple of years has been just about AI and how it's changing things. It's very exciting. We use that word a lot. And I'll probably use the word exciting a couple of times in this conversation. But he was talking about Jarvis, and he was like Tony Stark just has this thing, and it just does. He says, I need this thing, and Jarvis just builds the app at in real time at exactly what he needs. And this was like really early V0 days too. So and Bolt new and all that, like before Bolt. And so I'd just been thinking about this a lot. And then I had Epic WebConf to run this year. And once that was done, I actually, Ryan was going to come speak at the conference. He was sick. And so I brought all of his swag over to his house. And I was like, hey, sorry you were sick. Here's that. And then we got to talking. And it was now, okay, I'm done with the conference. What am I going to do next? And he was like, you need to look at this MCP thing. And I hadn't actually heard about it because I was so focused on the React conference and the Epic Web conference. And so I looked into it. I'm like, oh, okay, now. So before it was Jarvis is like, can you answer your questions? There are some specific tool integrations you can build. And so like you still have the integration problem at that point where you have to build a tool for every single little thing. You, the developer, if you want to make Jarvis, you have to make all those integrations. And then MCP, it's like, oh, no, you don't. You just have to build a Jarvis that has the standard input, and then other people can build the part that goes into that input. I don't like this analogy, but it's the USB of services.
I said it during the keynote. I was
You did?
It's on the website.
It's what they say.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
I'm not saying USB-C is the best port to be, but it's just what we have.
Yeah. So exactly. That really is the point, though, is some people complain about MCP having gaps. What I don't care about gaps. I care about foundations. And the foundation is solid. Like could it be better? Yeah, sure. You build a house, you finish building the house. Foundation isn't exactly what I wanted it to be, but it's solid, and that's what matters. You can build something on top of that, and so and then also the fact that everybody has bought into MCP. Yeah. And so at the time, this was March, the new auth, or actually the first part of the spec that added support for auth showed up in March. And I was like, okay, no, you can build something real with this. Like actual services, product engineers can expose their services to AI. We can make Jarvis. And that's what got me into it.
That makes sense. I do love the Jarvis analogy. I know it's part of your talk. And I was watching the chat, people like, oh, I finally get it, right? There's sometimes like, it really is just that something that kind of clicks for people. And for me, in architecture, when I moved into like MVVM world, I'm a XAML.NET person, it kind of clicked for me. I was like, oh, I get it. I get the XAML. Like I can understand this. HTML, JavaScript, I don't know, but like I get this. And I remember the first time I sat down and I was working with, a Copilot and ChatGPT and these tools. I'm like, all right, I can do stuff, and like I can generate code. I was like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I always thought about this. Like the thing that I really wanted to solve is I wanted to go build a house. Go do it. Just go do the thing I want you to do. Like if you're talking to Siri, you're talking to Gemini, you're talking to Copilot, like I want you to do the thing. And every time I was like, oh, I can't do that yet. I was like, no, but I want you to do the thing. I see, but in my mind, I was like, this is going to happen. And I don't know how it's going to happen, but at some point it's going to happen. I remember the first time Den came to me, he's like, check this out. He like showed me an MCP server. I was like, this is amazing. And I was like, well, how's this different than an API? And he's like, well, no, let me explain to you how it's different than an API. How do you explain to people about MCP? It's not an API. When you're going and you're talking to your students, like, oh, I've invested 10 years in RESTful APIs and I moved on to GraphQL. Like, how is this different? Why can't just all these LLMs just call every single Swagger API?
Yeah.
Like, we have open API. Why not? Right?
Exactly. Honestly, that is such a common question. As soon as I introduce tools, that's one of the first questions from people is, okay, is there like some sort of tool that can just take my open API and expose those things as tools? The answer is yes, there is. But I recommend you try it so that you can firsthand experience why it's a bad idea. The real unlock for me when thinking about assistance and MCP is to, AI is not a human. That's just to be clear. But if you think of it as a human, then a lot of things make a lot more sense. Now, it's a really capable, competent human. It's not an intelligent human. It just has a lot of experience. Yeah. But for humans, even if you hired a human assistant to accomplish the task, that assistant's going to go to Google or to Bing, and it's going to do a search, find the tools that are necessary to accomplish the task, and then execute on those. But the search results are going to give it websites that have links and buttons and things that are very clear workflows and stuff. Each one of those websites could also just return a page that has, like, you can generate a website from an open API spec, right? Like, here's all the mutations and everything. And you can generate forms out of that. There's a reason we don't do that. And it's because it's too confusing for a human to understand, okay, so I need to call this, or I need to submit this form and then take the output from that form and submit this form and then take the output from that. And like, oh, I missed a step. Like, if you think about the mutations that your users are doing in a website, you often are calling this API, then this API, then that API, and putting it together to do a thing. And so if you just expose your entire REST API or Open API or Swagger or whatever documentation to an LLM, it's going to get confused. Yeah. And I would say maybe this is a limitation in the model. Some people say, well, the foundational model will just get better and it'll just be able to figure it out. But I mean, I just don't, like, let's assume that we have complete trust and that's 100% trustworthy. Would you really just open up your database to like execute any SQL statement you want? Yeah. Right. Assuming that we could trust it, right? Probably not, because it would just mess up some of our assumptions about the way the data is supposed to be there. Like, so for that reason, having tools and prompts and resources give a much more curated experience the same way that we do with a website.
Yeah.
And like thinking about, okay, the LLM is a human. The host application is the chat app that we use to talk to our human, or maybe even voice conversation, whatever. And then that assistant then goes to some sort of mechanism to identify the proper tools, and then it interacts with those tools. And thinking about those tools as a website for a human helps me organize the way that I think about the right way to build those servers, that integration layer.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think, and as I'm building software, like, yeah, you could build everything and deliver everything as a final product, but how do you even know if those users need 80% of that functionality, right? Like, focus on making what users actually are going to use fantastic for those inputs and those outputs so the LLM can interact over it. I think one of the first time that Den showed me this example of like the auth flow, and then using like Perplexity AI, and then using like these documentation searches, and then opening issues and assigning issues and doing this like just from natural language. I'm like, I'm going to describe what I want it to do. And then it can use all of its knowledge base, all of this, and like all the summarization and do this stuff. I'm like, I'm never going to create an issue ever again manually in my entire life. I'm never going to plan a new feature the same way that I ever did. I'm going to plan together, because it can have so much more context that I would be manually searching. Like, I could go do it, but I can pull all these things together. And then when I saw like Context 7, which was giving this infinite knowledge graph of every single library out there, because that's always the problem, is everything's evolving at the same time. How do we keep up? When I saw Context 7, I was like, oh yeah, this is a no-brainer, that this is how it works. And I have all these people, oh, how do I get this? And that's like, no, just Context 7. It knows it. It does it. Once it starts to get into this pattern of it doing the things that you would just do naturally, right? Which is I have like, my Perplexity server, I have Context 7, I have Microsoft Docs, I have the GitHub server, I have all these different tools, and I've had these different phases. And when I'm in it, I'm just like doing things I would normally do. Like, okay, let's plan out this feature, do this stuff. And it just starts to call the tools and the things that I would naturally be doing anyways. Yeah. But it does it about 1,000 times faster. I don't know about you. I'm on calls like all day. So like I'm usually sending a query off to Copilot, and then entering a call, and then like come back 30 minutes later, and then it has like a whole bunch of stuff done. Put in auto mode and just go, right? YOLO. Just go, let's do this, right? That's like, how many rounds do you want to do? 10,000. Just go as many as you want. I don't care. Just burn them all. But I think that was that unlock for me, because I was starting to see this future in my engineering life that I had thought about like a year ago. Kind of like you're talking about this Jarvis example. Like, yeah, like when I watched Iron Man for the first time, I was like, yeah, I think everyone looks at that like, I want that. That'd be cool. Like, it'd be great, right? Just plan it out. Talk to me. Have this conversation. And I was like, that's going to happen at some point. I think we're getting closer. And the MCP, I think, has been unlocking these capabilities. When you've been doing all of these trainings and workshops, like how are people reacting to it? Like, obviously they're exciting, they're signing up. I'm pretty sure I've been able to sign up myself, because it's been sold out so much.
That's true.
But like, what's the reaction been like from your students as far as like going through the course?
Yeah, I've actually I've never experienced anything like this, where I will list the workshop and it sells out really quickly every time. And I think there's a piece of hype and like fear of missing out in there, but there's also like the practical, I'm using this and it's really helpful. I want to figure out how to like integrate this in the service that I offer. As far as the reaction goes, especially with something new, I kind of expected that people would come to me to the workshop and they're like, I'm just attending because you say I should care. Because people trust me, I'm their teacher, and so I can understand that. But like where they're saying, I need you to explain to me why I should care. But they're not, like they already know why they should care, and they're really just wanting to understand the fundamentals of how these pieces fit together and how they can actually integrate it themselves. There are definitely gaps in the MCP spec, and the servers that I'm building that are like actual servers that people actually use, and as well as demos and things, are revealing a number of those gaps that I'm still trying to help make solutions for. But the more and more people you get into the ecosystem, the more these problems are revealed and then solved. I've just been really surprised at how, yes, there's an element of hype, but people actually seem to know where this fits in and are motivated to play a part in this future of human interaction.
Yeah. And I think if you are someone that's been building APIs, hopefully this kind of clicks with you a little bit, that it is sort of this natural evolution of APIs for LLMs in a way, but just different.
Yeah, I actually had somebody yesterday who in a workshop who kept on relating it to REST APIs and stuff like, oh, this is a list collection thing. And yeah, that is kind of what it is. And the thing is, like, MCP was designed to make it so that the servers are easier to implement, as easy as possible, at the expense of the client. So clients are a lot more complicated to implement. Not that I've done it. I've never tried myself, because I think in my vision of the future, the client is basically like the web browser and the server is your website. And so we have like maybe 5 web browsers and 5 trillion websites, right? So I think most of us are gonna be working on the servers, and that was intentional from the design. And I think that was just such a good idea to make it so that the thing that we're gonna be doing more of is a little bit easier. I think there are some, and the other part of that too is that this was designed by developers who do have experience with REST APIs and stuff. And so they kind of knew the ways to map these concepts to things that would be familiar to people. I think it actually does a pretty good job of that.
Yeah. Okay. Before we let you out of here, what has you kind of excited about the future here of not just MCP, but the AI space, the dev space, your career going forward in the educator space?
Yeah, for me, the most exciting thing for me is getting to a place where we can have a Jarvis like experience, like a general agent. I'm excited about vscode, like very focused agents that are like focused on a specific task. You can get a lot further with VS Code than you can with ChatGPT, of course. Like, it just has those integrated tools. But the general use agent that is useful for everybody, regardless of whether they're technical or not, is the most exciting thing to me. And so just finding I'm not really interested in building that myself. That's like not only is it a tough problem, but I have almost 6 kids. I want to spend time with them.
Yeah.
And so I'm just looking for what are the things that are stopping somebody from building that. And let me see how I can help. And so one of the areas that I can help is teaching people to make quality servers, which is what EpicAI Pro is doing. Also educating people on what the potential is. And so I've been talking a lot about a RAG for MCP tools. So before you hand like 7,000 tools to the LLM, you filter those down using RAG with the user's query, basically a search engine. It's like Google for MCPs. And so like talking about that, and there are research papers about that. I didn't do the research, so I'm grateful that actual research people do that. But like just promoting this idea and helping people see that. I'm not the kind of person who jumps on a hype train. That's not. I'm very thoughtful about the things that I do. But once I get on the train, I turn it into a hype train. Not in the negative way, but like in a, hey everybody, like this is the train. This is where we're going. This is huge, and you need to understand it. So doing everything that I can to help bring more and more people into this ecosystem, because I think that's a good thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Ken, thank you so much for sitting down. Where can people find you and Cody on the internet?
KentCDodds.com and EpicAI.pro. I'm also on X and GitHub at KentCDodds everywhere.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks again, Ken. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.